Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome, everyone. What a joy and blessing it is to be able to receive the sacred words today through this study. This past month, we were blessed with the missionary trip of Masaaki-sama and Masaaki-sama to Angola, to the sacred ground of soil. Our church's social media page is filled with posts of this missionary trip. If you are not able to go, this is a great opportunity for you to participate, for you to be able to follow the most important and precious moments during this missionary trip. During our study today, we will watch together some of these moments from this missionary trip, seeking to learn from the example of Masaaki-sama and Masaaki-sama, as well as absorbing and learning from the purity of faith of the African people. It's truly a very special opportunity. Also, this week, we will begin reading the sacred words of Masaaki-sama, the love of my life, from the October 2022 service. I'm really looking forward to studying with you this sacred word. So stay tuned as we begin right after this. As we begin today's study, let us, in the name of Messiah, which is one with Meishu-sama, one with Jesus Christ, recognize that it is only by God's grace and Kyoshu-sama's permission that we are able to hold these studies. With hearts filled with gratitude for this permission, let us, at this moment, invite all our ancestors, the ancestors of all humanity who live and breathe within each cell of our bodies, to participate in this study with us, acknowledging that the thoughts and feelings we experience during this study are the very thoughts and feelings that God has atoned for within each one of us through the atoning blood of Christ. So in the name of Messiah, let us together with them return to heaven as ones who have been forgiven and saved. Let us begin today's study with the church canon. Church canon. With great fear of God, we acknowledge that the Lord God is our true Father, the one and only God. We revere Meishu-sama as the model for all humanity and as our own example to follow. Meishu-sama, who was born anew as the true child of God, the Messiah, by receiving the divine will that God accomplished in heaven. We believe that Jesus Christ, who 2,000 years ago embodied the name of Messiah, the name most holy and high, is serving the Lord God in unity with Meishu-sama. We regard the sacred word of Kyoshu-sama, who reveals to us the will of Meishu-sama in this material world, as the sole, absolute, and irreplaceable foundation in advancing our mission here on earth. Words of prayer. God, I acknowledge that you are alive. Within me, you are alive. I thank you for nurturing me to be newly born as your child. May this blessing be shared with all. Name of Messiah, which is one with Meishu-sama, I surrender myself to you. Please use me as you wish. For all those of you who are watching and who have not yet become followers of our church's Instagram page, this is a great time for you to do so. All you have to do is open Instagram on your phone. Search for World Church of Messiah Once the page opens, below the name of the page, you will see the button to follow the page. Click on it. But it doesn't end there. In the top right-hand corner is a bell sign. Click on it to enable all notifications. Make sure you enable all of them. By doing so, you will be updated daily in real time when new posts are made in the Instagram page. This is a great way to align our sonen and hearts with the holy seed of Kyoshu on a daily basis. Through the Instagram page and Facebook, it is also a great way to see how our church is bringing this gospel of salvation to the entire world evermore. Not only they are truly great posts, and there's so much we can learn and so much that we can share with our family and friends. It is truly a treasure, so don't forget to share. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, this month, Masaaki-sama, together with Meishu-sama, made a missionary visit to Angola, to the sacred ground of soil, where over 20,000 people participated in the service. There are many posts that I'd like to share with you, as you can see here, but it's just not possible to do all of them during this study. So I will highlight just a few. Make sure to log on to Instagram to see the videos, pictures, read the posts, share, and save them. The first post was on August 16th, local time. Masaaki-sama and Meishu-sama took part in the rehearsal for the monthly service, and African membership conference scheduled for the following day. On this day, the king of the Congo tribe and his tribal attendants visited the sacred ground. The Kingdom of Congo once ruled what is now northern Angola, the Republic of the Congo, and Democratic Republic of the Congo. The Congo tribe is said to be the tribe from which humanity originated, and the only being higher than the king is God. They are such a distinguished tribe that they do not accept invitations even from people of the highest social standing. Whenever the king travels anywhere, permission from the president of Angola is required, which gives you an idea of how important his existence is. Upon receiving the invitation from Royal Church of Messiah, Angola, and the truth conveyed in Masaaki-sama's sacred word resonating with them, they decided to attend the monthly service and African membership conference and came to visit the sacred ground the day before the service. Not only that, when President Kabuso explained to them that Masaaki-sama is God's representative, God himself, the king accepted and acknowledged this. In other words, to the king, Masaaki-sama is the only person on earth who is greater than him, someone who holds a higher position than him. On this day, the Congo people requested that their ancestors be saved through Masaaki-sama, who is God's representative, and a ritual ceremony was held to that end. The tribal members first called upon their ancestors through dance and song. Then they bowed deeply to Masaaki-sama, as if they were throwing themselves onto the ground, and the king joined them to make a prayer to offer their ancestors to God through Masaaki-sama. With many members of World Church of Messiah Angola watching, Masaaki-sama graciously received the prayer in accordance with their ritual customs. What a mysterious miracle this is. The king of the tribe that claims to be the ancestor of humanity recognized Masaaki-sama as the representative of God, came to visit the sacred ground of soil with his clan and performed a ritual to have their ancestors be saved through Masaaki-sama. I, the reporter, got goosebumps from this utterly unexpected turn of events. Watching this made me convinced once again that Masaaki-sama is the Messiah himself, who saves all peoples of the world without distinction. It goes without saying that this miraculous moment was deeply touching, and it newly engraved the greatness of Masaaki-sama in our hearts. Second, before going into the second post, I'd like to make a quick pause here for us to reflect on the immensity of this outcome, right? It might seem like nothing, but it's huge, right? The king of the Congo recognized Masaaki-sama, came all the way to Masaaki-sama, and through Masaaki-sama requested the salvation of the ancestors, right? And if you think about it, right, if the king of Congo recognizes this divinity, this importance and role of Masaaki-sama, how about us? Us who are following Masaaki-sama, living Meishu-sama on this earth, the living Meishu-sama on this earth. How are we receiving the sacred words that Masaaki-sama is sharing with us? Truly goes without saying that I believe we are extremely, extremely blessed to be called by God to be on this path directly under the leadership of Masaaki-sama. And at the same time, I believe we also need to reflect even more, right? How we are receiving this truth. Because that changes everything as to our posture, our decisions, how we lead our lives going forward in service to God. Wouldn't you agree? I think this is an amazing point that we need to reflect on deeper and face our challenges within ourselves, I believe, right? Overcome the difficulties that we might be having. The second post reads as follows. Masaaki-sama and Mami-sama visit the farm on August 16th local time after taking part in the rehearsal for the monthly service and African membership conference that would take place the following day. Masaaki-sama and Mami-sama visited the farm within the sacred ground. Last year, the farm area was approximately 750 square meters. But this year, it has expanded to an astonishing 13,000 square meters, approximately 17 times larger, showing remarkable progress. We can see how the members are continuously developing the farmland and serving with sincerity in order to fulfill the mission entrusted by Masaaki-sama to supply food to the world as the sacred ground of soil. In addition to the cassava that was planted commemoratively by Masaaki-sama during last year's consecration ceremony, there are tomatoes, kale, feijão, beans, onions, peppers, lettuce, chili peppers, corn, sweet potatoes, eggplants, beets, pumpkins, carrots, bananas, and passion fruit on the farm. The cassava that Masaaki-sama planted commemoratively was just a small seedling of a few centimeters, but in this 1 year, it has grown robustly to about 3 meters in height. Masaaki-sama and Mami-sama took a look around while the staff provided various explanations about the farm. They even personally took a moment to harvest bananas, tomatoes, and kale. At last year's consecration ceremony, Masaaki-sama granted us the sacred word God created the soil, that is Africa, to provide food for all humanity, entrusting the members in Africa with an important mission. Seeing the well-managed farm and the many crops growing vigorously, I could not help but feel the pure faith of the members taking part in the dedicatory work and farm staff who are earnestly working toward Masaaki-sama's vision of supplying food from Africa to the world. What great joy this visit by Masaaki-sama and Mamioka-sama must have been to the members of Africa who are serving to fulfill the mission bestowed by Masaaki-sama. This joy will become an irreplaceable driving force, and the mission entrusted by Masaaki-sama will surely be accomplished. In the third post, we have the following. Masaaki-sama makes a resounding announcement. International Youth Conference to be held in Angola. On August 17th local time, the monthly service and African Membership Conference was conducted at the Sacred Ground of Soil in Angola, with over 20,000 members gathering in the presence of Masaaki-sama. In the beginning of his sacred word, Masaaki-sama introduced his wife, Mamioka-sama, and invited her to the stage. When Mamioka-sama took the stage and said, "I love Africa" in Portuguese, thunderous cheers erupted from the venue. After Mamioka-sama returned to her seat, Masaaki-sama spoke of how he could not exist without Mamioka-sama, then said the famous words of greatest love for one's spouse. Ela é o amor da minha vida. She is the love of my life, at which the entire gathering erupted in enthusiasm. Masaaki-sama also spoke of how he met Mamioka-sama and fell in love with her smile and purity. From the podium, he said to Mamioka-sama in Portuguese, "Mami, thank you for marrying me." It was a moving scene as Mamioka-sama stood up with tears filling her eyes and bowed deeply to Masaaki-sama. During the missionary visit, President Kabuso repeatedly said, "Masaaki-sama's very way of living is our model," and the same applies to his relationship with Mamioka-sama. I always encourage the Angolan members to follow Masaaki-sama's example and pursue marriage. In Angola, many couples only cohabitate without marrying. Afterwards, as always, Masaaki-sama delivered his sacred word without a script, in very fluent Portuguese. The African members, who had been eagerly waiting this day and yearning for the sole truth given forth by Masaaki-sama, listened intently with earnest expressions, at times breaking into loud applause, at times laughing, and at times shedding tears of emotion. When Masaaki-sama raised questions to the members, powerful responses of yes resounded throughout. Their voices were filled with unwavering faith and determination. Finally, Masaaki-sama made one announcement. He declared that next year, the International Youth Conference would be held at the Sacred Ground of Soil in Angola, welcoming young members from around the world. Masaaki-sama expressed his wish for young people from around the world who bear the future of the church on their shoulders to experience the faith of the Angolan members. Then Masaaki-sama asked everyone, "May I come to Angola again next year?" The wonderful reality that Masaaki-sama and Mamioka-sama would visit Angola again next year. Deep gratitude, everyone responded with a heartfelt yes. The African members received the sacred word, the gospel, from Masaaki-sama on this day. They will continue to walk forward, single-minded devotion on the path of true salvation in order to respond to Masaaki-sama's will. This is a truly amazing missionary visit by Masaaki-sama. There's so many points here. In the second video, we see how fast the sacred ground is moving forward and growing. It's just incredible to see that in just a short span of 1 year, how much the crops are growing, the trees are growing. There's another post here that shows a commemorative tree that Masaaki-sama planted. And it's just incredible to see in person how big it has become in just the short span of 1 year. I believe that this vibrant energy of God, right, flowing through the sacred ground is bringing forth such unprecedented growth. And we can see that this will of Masaaki-sama is unfolding at an immense speed. It's also amazing to see 20,000 people participate in the service. I think here overseas, maybe in the US and countries where the church is smaller, we can get kind of discouraged, right? And think, wow, are people really listening? Are they really coming along? And over there, it's just the total opposite, right? To see this fervent passion, this faith of the African members traveling for days to participate in the service, right? In very limited conditions, not like here where you have transportation to go wherever you want to go, where you can just get in your car and go, and you have beautifully paved roads that will take you there in no time, or you can just hop on a plane. Over there, it's truly a testament of faith to see the journey that these members made to go and participate, to receive the sacred word from Masaaki-sama. And I think that brings us to have to reflect, right? Like the king of the Congo, who recognized Masaaki-sama's existence. Like these 20,000 members who made their journey to the sacred ground, some traveling days, right? Some of them not having proper hotels to sleep at, to go, bringing their children along. This passion to go and receive the sacred word from Masaaki-sama. And not only that, upon receiving that sacred word, putting into practice in their daily lives. And as we can see at the sacred ground, the very will of Masaaki-sama, the mission they received to feed the world through the sacred ground of soil, through Africa. They are working tirelessly to bring that about. So upon looking at, reflecting on that, right, seeing this posture really brings us to reflect. How am I receiving the sacred word today? Is my faith just as fervent, as passionate? Or are there points where I need to reconsider? I need to reflect and to change. I think we have to make that honest assessment, right? And really see ourselves and learn from this example of the African members. Another thing that really caught my attention reading this post were the words by President Kabuso, right? Saying Masaaki-sama and Masaaki-sama's way of living is an example for us, where he's talking about marriage and encouraging the members in Africa who cohabitate to marry, right? And I believe that example of Masaaki-sama and Mamioka-sama is in everything in our lives. They are showing us not only the path we have to walk, but how to walk that path. And not only how to walk that path, but that it is possible for anyone willing to walk the walk it's possible. So it's amazing. There's really so much content in these Instagram posts. I highly, highly recommend you take a few moments and go through them, read the posts, save them, share with your family and friends. There is so much that we can learn from them. Okay? So, with this in mind, I like to begin the reading of the sacred word from the Grand Autumn Service, The Love of My Life, October 2nd, 2022. Hello, everyone. Today, the order of service was a little different from the usual, wasn't it? Just now, we heard Mrs. Yoshinami's declaration of resolve. Thank you, Mrs. Yoshinami. As the president said in his greeting, the election that takes place once every 3 years for the executive directors and directors has happened. That's why our order of service is different today. You may think that this election for the executives is something that only happens at the senior levels and has nothing to do with us members. But that's not it. That's because the executives are representatives of all of you, the members. Isn't that right? Before whom are they representing you? It is Kyoshu-sama before whom they stand as your representatives. Each one of you belongs to a specific church. At that church, the lead minister obviously represents all of you and serves Kyoshu-sama. At the same time, the lead minister guides all of you on behalf of Kyoshu-sama. Of course, it would be great if Kyoshu-sama or I could go to various churches all around the country every day, but that is not possible. Although we are able to meet you at times like these grand services, it is usually the lead ministers who guide all of you on behalf of Kyoshu-sama and also serve Kyoshu-sama, representing all of you. Then, the ones who manage the lead ministers are the missionary area chiefs. The ones who manage the missionary area chiefs are the regional directors. Ones who manage the regional directors are the executive directors. And the ones who manage the executive directors are the president and the one who assists him or her, the vice president. So, the executive directors are, without a doubt, serving Kyoshu-sama as your representatives. In other words, a change in the executive directors means a change in the people representing you in serving Kyoshu-sama. So it is certainly not an unrelated matter to all of you. As I just said, it is difficult for me to meet each and every one of you directly. So when I listen to the president's reports, I listen with the thought that all of your thoughts, all of the members' thoughts are in there. Also, if I would like to convey something to all of you, there are times I will do so through the president. And while we hear a lot about the board of executive directors, we don't normally hear about this board of directors, right? This time, the members of the board of directors are now all women, but this is not for display. Some may just think, oh, all directors are women, and end it there, thinking there is no meaning to it. But it is not like that. If the directors feel that something is wrong with the executive directors or the president, by the wishes of the board of directors, they are able to remove members from the board of executive directors, including the president. The opposite cannot happen. The board of executive directors is not able to remove a member of the board of directors. So, depending on how you look at it, it is not too much to say that the board of directors has more power. President Nari, you are cornered. Everyone laughs. In that sense, the members of the board of directors, up until today, who held this heavy responsibility for the last 3 years, although the church has been stable for that time being, and nothing in particular has occurred so far, I am appreciative of the big role they have to fill for 3 years. We talk about being born anew, don't we? Regardless of whether or not we understand the meaning of these words, in any case, we talk about being born anew. To be born anew means that the masculine and the feminine must become one, obviously. Otherwise, a child cannot be born. And this time, the board of executive directors is all men. So it is precisely the masculine board of executive directors and the feminine board of directors that will work together, of course. There's a kind of tension from these checks and balances, but the masculine and feminine elements will become one and go forward. This is how it must be. We ourselves want to accomplish being born anew as children of God. We are also trying to bring this to the attention of the world. Although it is true that this organizational structure being made means that we have certainly become better suited for the 21st century, with women now working in the open in these positions. At the same time, I also believe that this organizational structure is one model that expresses the masculine and the feminine becoming one, joining forces and advancing. So for us, we're trying to advance on this path of being born anew, and for our faith, I believe this new structure will be a great source of strength. So this election for the executive directors, the directors, is not something that is happening with the higher ups in a place that has nothing to do with you. No, quite literally, this is a new start for all of us, and it is a great opportunity to make further leaps forward. In this sense, I strongly feel that today is a deeply significant Grand Autumn service. To change the subject, there is something I would like to speak about to all of you today, and that is what we call this human world. There is this human world, and by contrast, there is the world of faith, where we believe in God. Between these two worlds is a gap, a gulf. And right now, it seems rather difficult to fill it. Just making a quick pause before going forward, right? This is really amazing. This was back in 2022, where Masaaki-sama is talking about this masculine and feminine joining, and the unity of these two is a source of great strength within the church, but also that this is what happens in this new birth when we are talking about being born anew. And I'd like for us to keep that in mind and pay close attention to that as we move forward in the sacred word. Right. Another point that really brings to my attention here is Masaaki-sama talking about this way that we see the world, right? This human world, and then there is God's world, right? The world that we believe in, faith, the way we see the world of faith and the way we see this human world. And many of us watching today might have had that kind of experience or thought before, right? Well, this is all nice and great when we're talking about faith, but how about my daily life? How about this world and what I have to do in my daily work? How do I apply this? How do I put it into practice? So this is also great for us to keep our thoughts focused, right, as we are reading, receiving the sacred word. And he continues, in the world of faith, they say, I believe in God and go forward. In the human world, they say, I don't need God, or by human power and effort, we are going to make this world a better place, step by step. Or let's all work hard and cooperate with each other, and we can make a better world little by little. Well, of course, human effort is important. As such, there is a gap between society and the world of faith, particularly in Japan. Let alone the gap, people are negative toward religion, or I should say, they have a sort of discrimination against religion. So there seems to be no sign of the gap between these two worlds being filled. And again, in society, just because they say they don't believe in God, it doesn't mean that anything goes. People live with a kind of moral standard, if you will, a set of rules. It is a world of do not lie, be honest, keep your promises, treat your parents well, be useful to someone, do good deeds, etc. These are the moral standards of society. For us who have faith in God, this is not an irrelevant issue. From childhood, we ourselves have had this kind of thinking driven into us by our immediate family members, or from school, or from other various places, right? Driven in. Let's become useful to someone. Seems like it could be a slogan put up at a school or something. But let's turn our hearts to God as a slogan would seem rather difficult in those places, right? This is how much these moral standards of society exist in such very strong forms. Everybody lives with them, including us who have faith in God. And I don't think there's anyone who can say that they have not violated any of these moral standards their entire life. I have never told a lie. I have done nothing but treat my parents well. I have never done anything to disappoint my parents. I have only thought about the benefit of other people. I have never been selfish, thinking only about myself. I don't think there is anyone like this, right? A quick pause, right? It's impossible for anybody to say they are perfect in this way, right? That they've never committed these wrongs or broke these moral standards. Masaaki-sama continues. He says, on the other hand, the opposite type of person doesn't exist either. I only tell lies. Someone like this would be hard to find, wouldn't it? This is kind of a strange way of putting it, though. In reality, everybody lives somewhere in between for the most part. I remember that time when I broke such an important promise. So from now on, I don't want to break any promises, or unintentionally said such cold things to my parents. But from now on, I will treat them well. But after thinking that, your parents pass on, and you find yourself in regret, not able to have an opportunity to honor them properly. Or, I regret the time that I hurt that person, and I want to be a better person somehow. This is the way we live. We pass on carrying these kinds of thoughts. And we are under the belief that this is what life is. While feeling joy, anger, grief, and pleasure, experiencing the bitter and the sweet, we live for years and decades, and then die a natural death. We believe that this is life. We assume this. We ourselves live with this mindset. We live in this kind of world like it is normal. Just making a quick pause here. Isn't this how we put value in our lives? Right? Living these experiences, bittersweet experience, right? And we say that this is life. And as Masaaki-sama says here, we ourselves live with this mindset. We live in this kind of world like it is normal. Like it is normal. Makes you think, like it is normal, then this is truly not the normal, the true normal that it should be. Is it? Right? We have to really stop and think about that, because I bet anybody watching here today has gone this past week, this past month, with this kind of mindset, I would say, right? Believing that they are living life, true life, or fulfilling their true purpose, if you will, right? But look what Masaaki-sama is sharing with us. But the truth is, this way of living is a dead end. That's because we are aiming for something that cannot be reached. We believe that this is life. This is the spice of life, but it is actually a dead end. This is huge, right? For anybody, and mostly everybody in the world today, we've been walking toward a dead end because we are living for something that cannot be reached. Cannot be reached, right? We're endlessly chasing this way of life that cannot be reached. Think about that for a second. Right? And think about where we are applying our time and our values in our day to day. And then he shares. There are some rules. You try really hard to follow those rules, but you cannot follow them perfectly. Still, you feel that you must. The fact that we live in this way actually shows that we are at a dead end. All of society, all of humanity is actually at a dead end. So then, why are these moral standards or rules driven into us from a young age? We are tasked our whole life to achieve something that cannot be achieved. Is that how our life ends? No, it isn't. So these standards are driven in, and there, we are conflicted. We are at a dead end, thinking, I regret telling that lie that time, or I broke a promise with that person, or I was not able to treat my parents properly. In actuality, these are for us to realize at that moment, all these standards and rules exist because they matter to God. This is also another big point, right? Really need to take a moment. For many of us, for many years, maybe we believed that these rules were a human construct, right? Made by humans to live in right and just way, or best way possible, humanly possible. And have we ever considered that they matter to God? And what does it mean that they matter to God, right? From God's point of view, what is that? Look what Masaaki-sama shares with us here. Do not tell lies. To whom, actually, should we not tell lies? I have to keep my promises. With whom, actually, should we be keeping our promises? Treat your parents well. Whom, actually, should we be honoring? Live for others. For whom, actually, should we live? But as you can see, the fact that we are at a dead end, living by these standards and rules of society means that actually it is God who is asking us these questions. You reach a dead end, God is wishing, won't you remember me? God is wishing, I don't want you to lie to me. Keep the promise you made with me. Recognize me as your father. Why don't you and I unite as parent and child? Won't you think of my sake as I think of yours? As it's making a pause here, right? Have we ever considered this such intimate relationship with God? Without Masaaki-sama's sacred words, would never gotten to even ponder on this, right? To think that God is actually bringing out this question to us, right? I don't want you to lie to me. Keep the promise you made with me. Recognize me as your father. Why don't you and I unite as parent and child? This whole time we're looking at these rules, right? These moral rules that exist in society and trying to apply them to one another and live the best that we can within one another. But in reality, we're, of course, not saying that we shouldn't do that to one another, live well with one another. But the true person closest to us that we have to be looking at is God. And do we really, have we really gotten to the point where we will reflect on this? Am I keeping my promise with God? Am I lying to God at this moment? Do I recognize God as my Father? Am I seeking to unite as His child? Am I thinking of His sake as He thinks of mine? Have you ever thought about that? To think of God's sake? To think of God's well-being and happiness? That's very new, I believe, for many of us, right? And look what Masaaki-sama shares. He says, in order for us to realize this, truth be told, God has made us hear these standards and rules from a young age repeatedly until we are sick and tired of hearing them, until we die. You shouldn't do this. You're not supposed to do that. The truth is, all these things are about our relationship with God. It's just that it isn't expressed in words that way. I read this part again, right? The truth is, all these things are about our relationship with God. It's just that it isn't expressed in words that way. But even if we are told this, you may be wondering, and what does it mean exactly to not lie to God? It's a great question, is it not? Masaaki-sama shares, to say in a phrase, for God it means, show me your honest, undisguised self as you are. That is to say, we are always trying to show our best selves. I practice faith, or I believe in God, or I am a person with resolve. But if you are told to show yourself as you are, you may imagine something dramatic and think that it is very difficult. Isn't that true? But this, as you are, is actually not that complicated. It is about thoughts like, It's hard for me to make up my mind. Or how great that person made up their mind. Or we are told that everything belongs to God, but I simply cannot believe that everything is His. Even though this is what as you are means, we make assumptions that make it hard for us to move forward. If I don't believe that everything belongs to God, I won't be able to surrender things. Or the me that can't believe that everything belongs to God is not honest. I mean, there really is no one who can make the switch right away. That's why God is saying, I know it is not simple. So, with those confused thoughts and feelings, those half hearted, incomplete thoughts and feelings as they are, come to me. Look at this amazing love of God, right? If you really stop to think about it, God wants to receive us as a whole meaning a part that has difficulty accepting His way, difficulty believing, right? That half hearted, incomplete part of us, God wants us to return to Him. That is true love, is it not? You really stop to think about it. And look what Masaaki-sama shares. He says, if you are able to do so, God may then say, okay, and grant you His blessing of freeing you from those half-hearted, incomplete situations. But we hold on to those half-hearted, incomplete thoughts and feelings tightly, don't we? Look at this, right? If we truly return to God, surrendering ourselves with that thought and feeling, God may then say to us, okay, and grant us His blessing of freeing us from those half-hearted, incomplete situations. Only by God's power can we be freed from those incomplete situations, from that part that we don't want to show God, right? Here we are, full of issues, full of problems, full of disbeliefs. And instead of turning our hearts to God and surrendering ourselves truly to God, we make it before God. As Masaaki-sama says, we hold on to those half-hearted, incomplete thoughts, feelings very tightly. We say, this is how I am, right? Don't we do that? This is how I've been. Oh, it just doesn't change. Right? I'm praying, but it's not possible, right? And we're holding on to that. And here it says, Masaaki-sama picks up the moistened hand towel, oshibori, that had been placed on the podium, and holding it tightly says, that's why we are unmoving, sitting in one place for so long. That person is great. I can't make up my mind. I'm not able to believe that everything belongs to God, so I can't surrender. That's where we are stalled. We have assumed that as we are is something incredibly noble. That is why we are stuck. Look at this. We have assumed that as we are, like the problems I have, the issues I have, right? That is incredibly noble. And that is why we're stuck. We're holding on to that. Do you feel stuck in your life right now? Is there a certain situation or something in this path of faith that you are feeling stuck? Reflect. How are you encountering, how are you facing that situation at this moment? Look what Masaaki-sama shares. He says, and on keeping our promises with God, we might say that we don't remember making any promises with Him, but actually we did. We may have forgotten, but we really did. After all, we are parent and child. This is a really, really interesting point, right? Because lately, not lately, but often we hear people saying, I don't want to commit, right? I don't want to take on this dedication. I don't want to serve. I don't want to say that I'm going to be offering XYZ, time, money, talent, because I don't want to commit. But truth be told, we committed a long time ago. We made a promise with God a long time ago. And Masaaki-sama shares, he says, we were told, I will send you to the earth, but come back to me, bringing everything along with you. We said to God, I understand, I promise. Then we left heaven and came here. This is not a made-up story. All I mentioned, treating your parents well, God is no doubt the true parent. This means that if you want to honor your parent, and at the very least, you must first recognize that God is the true parent. Otherwise, you will not be able to start honoring your parents properly on earth either. So God said to us, come back and bring everything, and we made that promise. And then we come here, we forget that promise, or we disregard that promise. We say, well, I have to live my best life on earth, right? I have to honor my parents. I have to take care of my family. But look at this. Even to honor our parents properly on earth, first and foremost, we have to honor God, our true parent. Or else we can't honor our parents here on earth. And Masaaki-sama shares, he says, living for others, too, actually means that we must live for God. If you leave out for God while saying for others in society, God will say to you, aren't you doing that to enhance your own virtues? And that's the end of it, right? So even to do things for others in society, our life, our existence, we are here to live for God. For God first and foremost. Or else we're just doing to enhance ourselves and our relationship and our way of being, our way of living, not? And he continues, he says, it is the same for doing good deeds out in the world. They say things like, do one good deed a day. But to God, to do good is for us to return to God and call him Father. For God, this is the best good deed. That's because God is our true parent. Leaving this out while doing one good deed a day only in this human world will accomplish nothing, to tell you the truth. Without the power of God to begin with, there is no one good deed we can do. It's useless to do anything without paying due respect toward God, toward this God. I read this part again, right? Without the power of God to begin with, there is no one good deed we can do. Everything comes from the power of God, comes from God's permission, comes from God himself. If God does not call, as Masaaki-sama shared in other sacred word, call us to pray, we cannot pray. If he does not call us to walk, we cannot walk. We think, I worked, right? I accomplished, I did. All of that is nothing if we don't see God and if we are not paying due respect toward God. Recognizing God alive within me, and without that God, I am no one. I am nothing. He shares, I think all of you have a sense of what I am talking about now, right? You may think, okay, the matters of this world actually have to do with God. And from now on, you'll think, let's live like that. Let's honor our true parent, God. Until now, you have been living for human beings. But from now on, you will live for God. You think it will be smooth sailing from there, God will tell you, hold it right there. Isn't that exactly what we do, right? We receive the sacred word and I'm guilty, right? We try to put it into practice right away, thinking we got it, right? I got it. This is what it means. But look what Masaaki-sama is sharing, right? It's not so simple. It's not so smooth sailing. Okay, now I'm going to live for God. Why is that? And he says, why would he do that? God will say to you, haven't you all been lying to me until now? Haven't you broken your promise with me? You left me, said you would come back, but you have been doing as you please for the longest time. You forgot me. Actually, didn't you think this whole time that it would be better without me? Didn't you think that my existence was inconvenient? So that is where our impurities, our sin, God is asking us, do you have sins? What are you going to do about them? This is what is left. God is telling us, you say from now on, I want to do my best and live for God. I want to go forward with the true good deed of always turning my heart to God. That's fine and good. What are you going to do about those stains? Your clothes are dirty, aren't they? You won't be able to come back to me like that. It is sin, isn't it? So now you may be wondering, what should we do then? Thinking about it even a little, we wouldn't be able to see our own lives as spotlessly white or wonderful, right? In life, there are many things we did that we could not help. Circumstances escalated. Something you couldn't imagine happened, and we said things that we shouldn't have, or we ended up doing things that we shouldn't have. These have happened to us, haven't they? Each one of us is burdened with these kinds of things. We can't take them back, can we? So what do we do? God is telling us to cleanse those sins before anything else. Clean yourself up first. This is the number one step. This is where the Lord of Atonement comes into the picture. The Lord who atones for our sins. The Lord of Atonement. Even Meishu-sama recognizes the existence of the Lord of Atonement, the one who atones for his sins. And how did God atone for our sins? As all of you know, he made Jesus Christ go on the cross. And with the blood that Jesus shed, he atoned for humanity's sins. This is the Lord of Atonement, Jesus. Jesus, the Lord of Atonement. If that is the case, then we must first accept Jesus as the Lord of Atonement. We must accept Jesus' crucifixion. We must accept Jesus' blood. Otherwise, we cannot go to the next step. That's because we are still dirty. This is truly amazing, right? Because we want to turn our hearts to God, right? Hearing the sacred word, we want to follow in the right footsteps. We want to surrender our life to God and live a life in service to God. But as Masaaki-sama is showing for us here, it's not that simple. You have to see where you are, where you've been, the sins you've committed, right? If you cannot acknowledge what's in you and what was needed to be forgiven, if you cannot accept that forgiveness, how can you go to the next step? How can you go forward? So truly, we are receiving the greatest blessing, God's grace. We are being made to know God's ultimate act of love for us, his forgiveness of our sins, but doesn't end with just God forgiving our sins as we're seeing here. We have to cleanse ourselves. And how is that? Accepting Jesus, accepting the blood of Christ, accepting the crucifixion. If we do not do that, How can we go forward? Dirty, impossible, right? This is where I like to stop our study here today for us to reflect as we are seeking to live truly God centered lives, as we are seeking to truly honor our Father in our daily lives, honor and keep our promise by bringing everything back to God. Let us first and foremost accept God's forgiveness through the atoning blood of Christ. Recognize that everything that we are experiencing are the very things that God forgave in us. Acknowledge that and receive His love and forgiveness. I look forward to continuing this reading with you next week. Let us, one heart, receive this truth of God. Express our gratitude to God for the Holy Seed of Kyoshu, for Kyoshu-sama, for Masaaki-sama, guiding us back to Him with so much love, so much care. Thank you for joining us. May all honor, may all glory be returned to God always.